What is going on, L&M family? I've got an OG baller that's got some real game, Mr. John St. Pierre. I actually got to hang out with him on his podcast with his co-host, and just some nuggets to kind of get you curious about Mr. John. He has co-founded and grown two companies to over 50 million with an M, $50 million in revenue, which is a lot of damn money. He's also a fellow author. He wrote the $100 million Journey, which I think he pinky promised that he would at least help us figure out how to make 10 million. I don't know. I'm joking a little bit. And his mission, and this is what is really intriguing, is his mission is to help entrepreneurs and intrapreneurs achieve their goals and dreams. And of course, I'm going to make you wait just a few more seconds before we get to know Mr. John St. Pierre a little better to do our shout out. So I got an L&M shout out for Mr. Daryl. Daryl said, story number 4 teared me up because it was all about the conflict between negative self-perspective and embarrassment versus the actual value of being vulnerable and the determination that infused confidence into others. So Daryl, thank you very much for taking the time to to read the book, first of all, and then to leave a review, because it feels really good to know that somebody read it and it impacted them in some kind of way. And to the rest of the family members, you already know, send me a message, leave a comment on the socials, drop a review. I am excited and looking forward to giving you a shout out on the next interview. And now for Mr. John St. Pierre. Mr. John, how you doing today, my friend?
Doing great. Excited to be here.
Man, me too. I think we have a little unfair advantage here because we've hung out before. We've had some conversations before. And so I want to just dive in with the challenging question, maybe that'll hopefully reveal a nugget for the L&M family to chew on, and also get to know what should everybody know about you. But the question is this: what is one of the life lessons that you share often that seems to help the most people?
I feel specifically when we're talking to entrepreneurs and intrapreneurs, Jesse, this concept of patient ambition. I was always very ambitious, but I wasn't patient. I thought it had to happen now. We have to grow 100% next year. We got to go. And then you run yourself off the cliff and you wonder, what just happened? And this idea of having ambition, but also combining it with patience, combining it with following a life plan, combine it with having a 3 to 5 year strategic business plan that you stay on the plan. You don't deviate, don't chase the shiny objects all over the place. And a lot of entrepreneurs don't have that patience. They want instant gratification. It's getting worse and worse. Today's generation want it now. They want it today. But having that patient ambition has been a massive life lesson that I learned through some pretty big failures in my life. And once I figured that trick out, that little concept of patient ambition, everything kind of got a lot clearer and easier. And all of a sudden, things started happening a lot faster.
My goodness. They're huge. Patient ambition. They kind of conflict. Just the two concepts conflict with each other. Now, you mentioned that it's something you learned through painful lessons in your life.
Yeah.
And I'm sure like the first time you grew that business to 50 million in revenue, it wasn't like here's the plan and you click some buttons and it happened.
Sure.
So having had the painful experiences that have given you or helped you build the patient ambition, how do you respond to painful experiences as you see them coming now, like in your current mode of operation?
Yeah. Wow. Oh, Jesse, I don't know if I can even answer that question before I kind of give you a little bit of context, because if I told you how I respond to failure and missteps today, you need to know the context of the past. But I'll give you one of them, just one of those failure examples. And it was my biggest. But one of those companies I grew to north of 50 million, around 55 million actually in global revenues, was a 15-year-old startup that started with nothing, $0. We're going to start this business up. Grew it over 15 years with 2 of my best friends and partners. Grew it to north of $55 million and lost it. I basically got fired in the boardroom of that company 15 years later by the investors and private equity firms that came in and invested in the business, and found myself completely broken. Lost identity, lost 15 years of building this business, and had to pick myself up off the pavement and figure out what is going on and what just happened to me. That was a pretty big failure in my life. And from experiences like that, you build a little bit of thicker skin, right? You kind of, if that can happen to me, I can get through anything. Now you walk in and you tell me the house is on fire. I'll start thinking, okay, sounds good. What do we need to do? I have a little more like reaction time in my mind, because when you face failure multiple times and get yourself back up, you start realizing that nothing's permanent and you can get through everything with the right mindset.
Oh my goodness. Okay. You said you combined some words and made a very powerful combination of lost identity in the, like when that whole situation happened, which I'm sure probably was not fun at all, but having that, building this thing up 15 years, 55 million global revenue, that's not a weekend hobby. That took a lot of your life, sacrifice of multiple things. Then you're booted out. And now what did I do wrong? How did I miss this? I'm sure all these questions start coming into your head.
Big time.
And you said, okay, let's go do it again. Am I reading that right?
Yeah, it wasn't that easy, but you're right. 15 years of blood, sweat, years of tears, like just not paying myself over the years. And then finally getting traction and the business is growing. You have hundreds of employees, an amazing culture, amazing people, best friends working in the business. It was in the sports industry, an industry I love so much and had so much passion for. My kids were youth athletes and they were wearing the logos of the t-shirts and all over. It was like everything. It was my everything. Yeah. And to lose that was devastating from a financial perspective. It was devastating from an embarrassment perspective. It was devastating from an identity perspective, because that was my identity. That's who people knew me as, was the CEO and co-founder of this business. And I had a lot of pride in that business. And when you lose that, it's kind of like that first, like what just happened kind of moment. Yep. Then there's okay, now what am I going to do? And you wake up the next morning and you don't have access to your emails anymore. Your calendar's empty. I was in a litigation type of situation with the company based on the severance agreement and everything. So I can't talk to anybody. It's just kind of like this uncomfortable situation you find yourself in. And what I did, Jesse, is I basically took some time of self-reflection. You know what? I'm not going to jump into anything else. I'm going to go for long walks with the dog. I'm going to think about where I'm at and what I'm doing. And I can share with you what I discovered in that period. But nonetheless, one of the biggest things after that period was really this moment of journaling. I had never journaled before, ever. I had never journaled before. I was too busy to journal. I got to get up and go. I don't journal. I don't need to do that.
That's for weak people.
Yeah, I don't need to do that. I'm just going to get going. So I never journaled. I never took some time to figure out what my true life purpose was. My purpose is I'm going to grow companies and everything's going to fall in place. And then I'm going to make some money and I have a family and everything's going to be great. Never had a purpose, although mentors had always said, John, someday you'll find your purpose. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm good. I took some time to really self-reflect on what my purpose was. And the biggest thing, Jesse, is I took some time to really develop a 30-year life plan for myself. Where did I want to be 30 years from now? Where do I want to be in 10 years? I'll be on track for my 30 years. Where do I want to be in 3 years to be on track for that? I really designed a truly comprehensive life plan. I had never done that before. I had designed company plans, annual plans, 3-year plans for my business, like clockwork. Hey, let's go for an offsite. We're going to do our strategic business plan. Never did that for myself. Never took the time to really build my own plan and align those two. And once I figured that out, it was more of, okay, what did I learn? What were the introspective learnings of this massive failure? Like, where did I go wrong? Do away with the victim mindset. What were my contributions? I was a CEO of that business. I made some critical errors in the foundational elements of setting that business up to put myself in a vulnerable position for that thing to happen to me. What were those? And I crystallized those. I call them the 7 principles of entrepreneurial success that I outlined, but then I had to go test them. So on the other side of this whole story, Jesse, is I had an equity investment in a project management contracting business. And that business around 2016, 17 was around a $5 million business. And I took those principles with my partner there and said, well, let's apply these principles over here. Because I'm not done growing companies. I love growing businesses. Let's go. Let's take this thing to 100 million. And we literally put together a 3 to 5 year business plan with that at the center, but applying the principles of success, not doing what I'd done there. Let's try this a new way. And in 2022, we successfully grew that company to north of $100 million the right way.
Yes. It's just, I hear the right way. I hear you say growing it the right way. The way that translates in my head is in a sustainable way.
Yeah.
We're not running people ragged. We're not cutting throats. So you got to be prepared to go there, but that's not the best way to do it. I mean, please, let me be clear. I've never built a $1 million business, much less a $50 or $100 million business, but I've spent a lot of time working with people and seeing teams grow and deteriorate. And the one thing that one of many things, but it's a powerful thing, is when people build systems, processes, thinking, mental models that are sustainable for the business and the people within the business, that produces an enhanced quality of life that translates into dollars and all kinds of beautiful things.
Yeah.
Now, and I'm assuming that this attaches to the book, the $100 Million Journey, the 7 principles. You went in this period of reflection, picked up journaling. It was a dark time. And so I'd like it if you could shine a little bit, some light on the dark times, because it's my assessment that, at least in Jesse land, the darkest times is where I've had the biggest lessons. And I know that there's L&M family members out there that are in dark times, that have been in dark times and maybe stuck there, or there's dark times ahead.
Yeah.
And so what I'd like is to maybe steal some of your wisdom to help them through that.
Yeah.
Because I don't think I think it's a human experience more than it is an entrepreneurial building multi-million-dollar business experience. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong at all. No, you're 100% right. So yeah, to share a little bit on that, in that moment, I'm in the boardroom, I'm getting fired, getting in my car. It was about 2 hours away, 2.5 hours away from my house. And obviously the first call I make is to my wife. Hey, I'm not sure what just happened, but I just got fired. Driving home. And this is a wife that, I don't know how other spouses are that are listening to this, but my wife's always right. Literally always right. And she had warned me, John, you're going too fast. John, are you sure you want to bring on some additional capital? Are you sure you want to do this? Like that kind of, oh no, I got this. They would never get rid of me. This is so the arrogance and just kind of that, no, I'm invincible. I got this. Right. To come back home, and I could tell that she had just informed my 10 and 12-year-old what had just happened, and to give her a big hug and said, honey, I effed up. And that was my sign to her that, you were right. I went way too far over the skis and put myself in this position. And so that was tough. That was really, really tough. But the one piece that really kept me in the moment, Jesse, was here's a 10 and 12-year-old, right? Mm-hmm. That no daddy had a bad day at work. Here's a wife who loved me, although she told me she had told me and warned me. She's there with me. I have my health. I was healthy. So nice family, healthy. This perspective starts coming in. Perspective. And it was like, that helped me a lot, which is there's so many things going on in this world that people are in much worse situations than this current. Although it's devastating, put it in perspective of everything. And I think sometimes people lose that element of perspective, where their problem seems bigger than any other problem that's out there. And in this particular situation, it hurt a whole bunch of different areas, but I wanted to be strong for them. I needed to be strong for myself and look at, okay, what are all the positive things? What am I grateful for? Yeah. What are all these things that I have? And so I think being grateful for what I had, having perspective of my current situation. And I think the big thing that you hear, it's cliche, is that, every dark room has a light switch, Yep. It's easier said than done, because when you're in that dark room, you can't find it. You're looking. But every dark room really does, and there's always a light there somewhere. You just got to find it. And that's kind of the perspective I had in those moments.
Check it out, hometowners. So Primo, he's a little bit embarrassed about asking for some backup, some esquina. And so I want to hit you up, and if you're digging this content, pues give it un like, give it the stars, or leave a comment, But if you really, really want to see Primo get all chiflado, for the reels, hit him up on the socials, Holmes. If you give him a comment in the socials and let him know what you thought about the thing, pues he's gonna light up. But only do it if you mean it, because you already know how Primo is. Se cree mucho el cabrón. So if you could do that, if you could leave a comment or a rating or the stars or whatever, that would be cool, man. Oh, man. Okay. So I want to hear a little bit about journaling, because I'm a huge advocate for journaling. It's not so much the physical act of writing stuff. It's more about the behavior of introspection and reflect. I, like you, was journaling, who got time to do that garbage? Now I've got an hour blocked out every day on my calendar, it says thinking time.
Yeah.
But it's me sitting down with my journal. I've got a fancy, super expensive Etch-a-Sketch. You remember the Etch-a-Sketch?
Oh, yeah.
So I got a Remarkable, which is
Look like this?
exactly like that. So I got one of those. And there's some days I'll sit and man, I'm writing, I'm burning it up. Other days I might write a few lines, but I'm thinking, right? I'm clarifying my thinking, looking at what I experienced yesterday or didn't, blah, blah, blah. I didn't start journaling an hour a day. My therapist challenged me to find 5 minutes in the next month to sit down and think. And I'm like, all right, I'll do my best. That's where I began. Now I have this habit where it's a daily thing. And so what was that progression like for you in terms of picking up the habit of journaling and doing that introspection?
Yeah. I think initially, Jesse, it was me trying to think through all the things that just happened. It was just a brain dump, no strategic. Anytime I take a piece of paper out, I just start writing, like really not strategic, not really organized. And the magic of doing these conversations, right? Mm-hmm. Rich Hoffman, my co-host for the Entrepreneurs United podcast, and we're in our 5th season now. So we started doing this pretty shortly after this situation's going on. I'm saying, hey, let's do this podcast again. I want to sharpen my saw and work with entrepreneurs. And we're doing these conversations. And one of our guests, Dr. Julie Bell was her name. She said, everybody should start every day for 20 minutes with a blank sheet of paper, just a blank sheet of paper, just blank. And just whatever comes, just let it come. And I committed in that session to Rich, who you've met. I said, Rich, I'm going to try that. I'm just going to try. I'm going to get a notepad and I'm going to start with a blank sheet of paper. I'm going to start. And out of that, Jesse, came this book. Mm-hmm. Out of that came a process I identified for myself that every morning, through talking through other guests and saying, we should start off every morning with what you were grateful for yesterday, what you're grateful for today. So then I started every day. I then changed my sheet of paper to start, okay, what am I grateful for yesterday? What am I grateful for today? And then my brain dump. And as I kept having more and more conversations, I started seeing more and more of a trend that some of the most successful people in the world journal every single day or night, one of the two, about what had just taken place, what they captured, what they put together. And I started finding it magical. I was like, oh, this is really cool. And the amount of ideas that I came up with, just a blank sheet of paper where I just let my mind go wherever it was going to go, really sparked my creativity. Really helped with my memory because I had stuff written down. I can go back. It's all here. I know where to find it. As with you, I got this Remarkable pad. So the last few years are right here. I can go find anything. I can go find our podcast from a month ago that you had with me within seconds and say, oh yeah, Jesse, we talked about this. Like for me, it just kind of brought everything together. I'll give you just one last piece. Somebody at one point, this is a book that I had read in the past, and they talked about what's Facebook's business model. And Facebook's business model is the elegant organization of information.
Okay.
Is what they called it. Yep. And in our minds, we have all these inputs, millions of inputs. They're just kind of coming in and out every single day in our reticular activating system. And that filter only takes in a certain amount of information. We can't take it all in, but there's millions of inputs that are just coming in to us or trying to hit us every single day. The ability to elegantly organize some of that is skating around in our minds on a piece of paper every day just creates magic for me now.
So 2 questions, or maybe observation and question. So one observation, it's funny, like getting prepped for our conversation today. I'm like, oh man, I got to block out time. I got to like in my head. And then I sit down and outline. I'm like, oh, it wasn't as big when I actually sit down and do the thing. Cause I got my dry erase pad here. And when I have that stuff going on, once I put pen to paper or whatever, pad, stylus to pad, whatever the damn thing is now, it seems to settle all the static and all the stuff that it's not as big as I thought it was when I sit down, get it out of my head and look at it. It's like, oh,
that's the elegant organization. Yeah, exactly.
Now, as you were journaling, and I'm sure, I mean, you're an entrepreneur, you've built many businesses, I'm sure your network is probably ultra power network. In terms of going from journaling to writing a book, was it like, okay, I'm going to write a book. Let me journal about it. What was that trajectory of getting fired, doing some soul searching, building a habit of journaling, writing a book? Yeah. Was it just that easy?
No, I mean, I think part of the journaling process for me was trying to crystallize what did I do, where did I mess up, right? And what do I want in my life? And what's my purpose? And what's my passion? And what do I want to do next? And like all these different thoughts. But in the introspective part of what did I learn as an entrepreneur in this experience? I started crystallizing, you know what? It's these 5 things. No, it's not these 5 things. I got 2 more. Here it is. Oh, I got 10 now. No, these 2 are the same. So I started like just
Yep.
trying to bring it together, partly because, Jesse, I never wanted to grow a company ever again and lose it. Never. To me,
Yeah.
if that was going to be a lesson, make it a lesson that I could really benefit from, right? I really didn't want to lose anything. The idea of writing a book, the book would have been half baked. The book would have been, here's what happened to me and here's what I learned, but there's no proof of concept.
Yeah.
That really wasn't quite there. But when I talked to my business partner about taking this other business and saying, hey, let's really grow this thing. Let's go. But I'm only going to do it if we don't violate these learnings that I have, right? Let's go apply
Got
them. And as I started to see the company grow and I started seeing, we're going to do it. We're going to bring this company from 5 million to 100 million, applying these principles in full control of our business and doing it the right way. In my mind, I got to tell this story. I got to go help entrepreneurs. I got to tell the story of the whole process, which in the book, I talk a lot about the story. So it's a third about a story, a third about the learnings, and a third really the case study that goes along with it.
Nice. Okay. So you had an idea. Let me practice these things, these truths that you discover through a painful experience. Now let me go test them and then capture that story. So I know that's ultra basic, simplified, but I really want to pull it out that way because we can all do that. It doesn't have to be a $1 billion business plan. It's the lessons. I really honestly, I don't know how to tease it out, but I get to coach and interact with a bunch of folks that want to do something different, right? They're in that transition phase of life, introspective. I got a great job. I like it. My situation's good, but there's something missing. And I feel like because I did this, there were a ton of really valuable lessons and transferable skills that I built as a result of doing life. But I didn't understand how universally applicable they were to different venues, different situations. And so that's why I'm trying to be ultra basic. But where are you on that thought in that the lessons that we learn are universal and maybe don't have to be the $50 million buildup and the $50 million loss to be true?
100%. I got a bunch of thoughts on that. First of all, the $100 million journey, which is the title of the book. If I told my publisher it was going to be the $1 million journey, they'd be like, that's not exciting enough. $10 million journey? Nah, that's not exciting. 100 million? Yeah, that sounds good. That's gonna sell, right? So the principles in this book apply to growing a $500,000 company to a $500 million company. They don't really change, right? So that's very important. But I want to address the point you talked about in terms of the transition, right? So put things in this perspective. When I got fired from that company, Jesse, that was my dream company. That was my dream role. If you asked me today, I could be the CEO of any company in the world. What company would you want to be the CEO? I'd be like, that company I lost. That would be my answer, right? So it was everything for me. So then you can't do that anymore. You got these non-competes, you got these different, whatever. It's like, okay, now what am I going to do? Do I go on LinkedIn and look for another job? And what industry? What do I want? What do I want to do? Like you start going through all these different thoughts. You're in this transitionary phase. The one thing hopefully your listeners could take from this that I executed upon and it worked wonders for me is in Jim Collins' book, Good to Great, he talks about the hedgehog concept. Are you familiar with that concept?
Oh, yeah.
It's these 3 circles, right? The Venn diagram where these 3 circles intersect. And I had once heard that's where success lives. If you can find the sweet spot in that Venn diagram in the middle of those 3 circles, that's success for you. And I've since been using that same Venn diagram with all the entrepreneurs and intrapreneurs that I coach, which is, what are you most passionate about? Let's do a brainstorm. What are all the things you're most passionate about? What can you be the best in the world at? Let's brainstorm that. Maybe you're not the best in the world at it today, but you have enough passion in it and you're pretty good at it that you could be the best in the world at it. Let's brainstorm those things. And what can drive your economic engine? What can really make the finances work for you that you have what you're looking to get in your life, right? Let's brainstorm those ideas. And where those all come to the center is what you should be doing. That's where success lives. And I think way too many people live in 1 or 2 of those circles and haven't found a way to live in all 3. And once you live in all 3, you're basically retired because you're doing life the way you want to do life. And you're waking up every morning excited, energized. You have the passion. You know you can be the best at it. You make it work for you economically. That is how you transition to something new, is really find that sweet spot.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that so clearly. So dumb question. Sitting down and getting that list and find that sweet spot. Should somebody carve out like 15 to 30 minutes to like make that happen, or should they be ready for to invest a little more time?
Yeah, I think it's more time. I mean, let's go back to journaling, right? You could spend an hour right now if you're listening to this, get a blank sheet of paper and fill that paper with the things you're the most passionate about. It doesn't matter. You write if it's your family, if it's this, if it's basketball, if it's carpentry, if it's ballet, it doesn't matter, right? Write all the things you're most passionate about today. Tomorrow, grab your blank sheet of paper and go, what can I be the best at, right? And write all those things down. And then what can I make money doing? Write all those things down. And then combine that list. I think it's a little bit more of a soul searching piece, right?
Yeah.
Because sometimes it's also good to do it with somebody like a coach who could brainstorm with you. Wait a minute, Jesse, I thought you were good at the guitar. Like, why isn't that? Do you like the guitar? Oh, yeah, I'm passionate, but I can't make money doing it. It doesn't matter. We're still writing it down. Like, you have to brainstorm these ideas out of your mind. But yeah, it takes a little bit longer than 20, 30 minutes, but it also is not that complex of a thing to do. And everybody can do it.
Yeah. Good. And I'm glad you said that, because back to patient ambition, right? If I'm not patient with this process, I'm going to list 10 things. Okay, there's the answer. Let me go do that. And then spend a whole bunch of energy. And maybe I didn't invest the appropriate amount of time to get ultra clear on what that sweet spot is. And I love your recommendation to do it with a coach or somebody you trust, so that they can challenge you and call you on it and really, really dig in deep on the thing. I was having a conversation with a really good friend of mine, colleague in the industry, and we were having this conversation about goals. And I have an issue. So maybe you could straighten my brain out a little bit. The way I view life or manage my ambition is I have a direction, right? I am on a path to share my gifts and talents, to introduce people to the promise they are intended to be. And provided that I am sharing my gifts and talents in service to others, I'm winning. I'm on the path, right? Like that's my method of thinking through selection, saying yes, saying no, all of that. And my friend was like, yeah, but what's your goal? And I'm like, I think I just said it. So we got a little deeper into it. And then it became like, yeah, but how do you measure that? And so I was like, oh, okay. In my head, measurement is not as important as the direction and the path. But I think for a lot of, maybe conventional thinking, and where I'm struggling to understand is, no. You got to have these hard measurable goals before you start moving, which again, I'm like, no, I just need to make the next rightest decision and get moving.
Yeah.
Well, what are your thoughts on all of that gibberish I just spouted?
Yeah. You're talking to a numbers person. And I do have a core philosophy that you can't manage what you don't measure. So if you don't measure something, you don't know how well you're doing. That being said, that's more of my core philosophy when you start talking about KPIs of a business and what the gross margin is and, different things like that. In the grand scheme of everything, right? One of the things I mentioned earlier is I have a 30-year life plan. I had never had a 30-year. I had never had a 1-year life plan, let alone a 30-year life. I have a 30-year life plan. And that whole idea, one of the other contributing elements to that was the book by Gary Keller, The One Thing. And the concept there is, what is the one thing you're trying to achieve in life? Not in business, in life. Like, what are you trying to achieve? What is that? So a lot of my self-reflection period that we talked about in that year, I took tons of time, was what is that one thing? Then once you have that one thing, 30 years from now, what does that look like? If you're achieving your one thing, in 30 years, where are you from a health perspective, a financial perspective, a relationship perspective, a spirituality perspective? I don't know, all the other perspectives you'd like to put in. Like, where do you want to be in all these areas 30 years from now? And then, okay, now you have your 30 years. Where do you want to be in 10 years? That if you hit this level in 10 years, you'll be on track to your 30-year plan. Okay, got that. Okay, now where do you need to be in 3 years to be on track for your 10-year, to be on track for your 30? Okay, got that. Where do you need to be in the next year to be on track for your 3-year, for your 10-year, 30? Okay, got that. We need to be each quarter. So now I have a quarterly plan. Okay, got that. Where do I got to be each month? Okay, got that. Where do I need to be each week? Okay, got that. Today, this hour, right now, you and I are doing exactly what we should be doing. That step we should be taking towards our 30-year life plan. And I don't know how to measure it exactly either. All I know is after this, I'm doing another thing that plays into my 30-year life plan, right? And that's how my days are constructed, is you got to build those blocking elements to keep marching towards your total life plan in general. And as long as you keep taking those steps, have patient ambition. You start making those steps, they'll all accumulate.
I love it. So So I'm not totally crazy. And truth be told, I do have some very specific, clear things that I'm measuring daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, annually. Those don't feel like those in my head, they're done. I just need to do the right things, learn the right lessons, and keep doing them. And they're going to be accomplished. Like, it's not hard. Other thing, the introducing people to the promise they're intended to be, that's a little harder and keeps me on a better path, not just for me, but for people. Or I'm sorry, I should say that the other way, because some people, I had one person ask me, she was like, Jess, you're just so giving, you're so available. And I'm like, yeah, it's like, why do you do that? And I'm like, it's not because I'm this super sweet guy, like for real, because it keeps me sober. It keeps me healthy to serve others. So It's not like I'm serving just for the plain sake of serving. It's because it's the only way I know how to get fulfillment and stay sober. Yeah. So there's some selfish stuff going on there, twisted stuff.
I love it.
But it's necessary to keep me going. Now, you've mentioned two words, and I threw them out at the beginning, intrapreneur and entrepreneur. And at first, I thought it was like a misspelling typo. Like, no, I think there's something there. So what's the real, I think people generally understand entrepreneur, what that means.
Yeah.
Especially now with all the damn content on social medias about entrepreneurship. Mm-hmm. But what's the relationship between intrapreneur and your book and intrapreneur and entrepreneur? Can you clarify that?
Sure. So let me start with the second part. What's the difference between an entrepreneur and an intrapreneur? There's a lot of individuals with entrepreneurial spirit that work within companies that aren't necessarily the owner of the company. They may be a small equity owner, but they may not be. They may be, there are CEOs of companies that don't own the company. They're paid very well to run the company, but they're an intrapreneur. So I look at the entrepreneur as high risk, high reward, right? You're putting all your capital at play. You're maybe getting, working for years without getting paid, and maybe someday you're going to create something great. Then you look at the employee who's exchanging time for money or results for money, right? On the employee side.
Yes.
Well, right in that middle is an intrapreneur. And an intrapreneur, if done right, is not only exchanging their time for money or results for money, but they also act like owners of the business. They're treated like owners of the business. And I call them intrapreneurs. And in the 7 principles, Jesse, principle 4 of the book, I'll give you principle 4 and I'll give you principle 7. Make guess what all the other ones are based on that. Principle 4 is you need to build a culture of entrepreneurship in your company. I see on the dry erase board behind you, others listening who are not watching will not see it. It says invest in who you got. Are you investing in your team and helping them become more entrepreneurial within your company so they start treating your company like it's their own on every single element of it? And principle 7, if I fast forward, principle 7 is how do you move from CEO to chairperson of your business? Because you may not be the best person to run your business. You need to elevate yourself from being the operator to being the owner and being more strategic, right? The only way to do that is by doing principle 4, building a culture of entrepreneurship where people can run your business. That $100 million company that I'm telling you about that we grew in the contracting space is run today. The CEO of that business was somebody I hired years ago as a sales rep, who now is the CEO of that business. He's now an equity partner as well. So he's not just an intrapreneur, he's now an entrepreneur as well and my partner in that business. But he didn't start off that way. He started off as an employee who became an intrapreneur, who became an entrepreneur.
Oh, man. Yeah. So I'm assuming you've read Dreammaker?
I have not.
I might be saying the title of the book wrong because I'm not good with that. Anyways, when you talked about developing intrapreneurship within your organization, because that's going to, you didn't say these words, but in my head is what I heard, right? Develop the capabilities within your people so that they operate as intrapreneurs, because that's going to enable scaling of the business. In that book, I think it's called Dreammaker, very similar, the super summation of that book, this family, husband and wife, had a business. I think it was like a cleaning business. And they were struggling with retention and, all the things. They started getting business and they couldn't get the people to do it. And it was very transient. People would leave for $1 more. And what they started doing was really getting connected with their staff, like their cleaning crews, to understand what they wanted to learn and what their greater ambitions were outside of the job. And then they contributed to that. whatever that was, learn another language, learn about business, learn about financial literacy. Like they started making deposits towards the dreams of their people. And guess what happened? They got tons of people that they had their head, hands, and heart access to that. And that business exploded.
Yep.
And then some of their staff started their own little businesses and left.
That's awesome.
But when they left, they said, hold on, we know some people, go work for these people. Yes, you're going to be cleaning commercial space, but they will make the dreams come true. Does that sound wacky, or is that,
it doesn't sound wacky at all. I think we have a massive problem in small business across America, where the most common thing you hear from an entrepreneur is, oh, I can't find good people. I just can't I can't keep good people. I can't find good people. There's an economic problem here. I can't find any good people. Hold on a second, right? Let's take that mirror up and ask these questions, right? Is the entrepreneur really a leader that people want to work for? Do they display those leadership traits and skills that inspire people that want to go work for a cleaning company, right? Do they have those skills? Number two, do they create the right environment for entrepreneurs to grow within? Because a lot of environments aren't built for proper entrepreneurship development, let's call it, right? People are stuck in a desk over there and they clock in and clock out. They're micromanaged. It's not set up for the right environment, right? Do they have the right situational leadership ability to train their team depending on where they are and keep developing them along the pathway? That's important. And can they identify the right talent? Being an entrepreneur right now is like being a pro scout. You got to be walking around going, I'm looking for talent. Like, where's the talent? You got to be able to identify in your business the people that can do more and need to be elevated and given the opportunities to prove themselves. And you need to be able to identify talent in prospecting and interviewing. You be able to identify talent when you're at the restaurant, you see somebody doing something special. That's the type of person I want working in my business, right? You got to be able to identify talent. So I think a lot of entrepreneurs are so busy running their businesses. They're in the trenches. They're shoveling the dirt. They're doing it. They're rolling up their sleeves. And then the idea is, well, I can't find good people. I can't keep good people, but they're not really developing that skill set within their organization.
Yeah. So you just mentioned a whole list of really powerful skills. I'm just going to be a thick-headed goofball and say, well, yeah, but there's just not that many people with those skills. Like, where do I go to find them?
What skills though? What skills are you talking about?
The people that I keep getting are people that don't take ownership for anything.
The people you keep getting or the people you keep hiring?
Yes. The people I keep hiring.
Okay. And part of the question, obviously, this is very industry specific, right? But right. How are you prospecting? Going back to this path of least resistance, I put an ad in the newspaper and these people showed up and I hired the best person of them, but they're not willing to take ownership, is a lot different than, are you prospecting people? Do you have the right interviewing process? Are you running a caliper style, like predictive index tests on people as they're coming through to see what their attributes are before going through the interview process, right? Like, how are you training them when they first come on, and how do you motivate them, and how are you paying them? Are you like, there's so many different elements of it, but the netting result ultimately, and this is why I agree with you, I hear it over and over again, is, well, I just can't, all the good people, they just don't come work here. They work over there. There's a lot of symptoms as to why that may be happening.
Yeah, that's a very polite way to say that. There's a lot of symptoms. I would say this is a you thing.
Yeah.
Instead of saying there's a lot of symptoms, but
it definitely is them as the owner of the business. They got to set up the right environment. They got to set up. Yeah. But I guess I bring back the problem in their defense. Cash is tight. I got to make sure our production's on schedule. I got to do this. I got to do that. Now we got a problem over here. Now this, like, the entrepreneurs run themselves crazy, right? They're working 80 hours a week, fully stressed out, trying to figure out how to do this whole thing. And you're telling them, hey, you got to hire better people. Yeah, easier said than done, Jesse. What am I supposed to do now? Like, it's not easy. It absolutely is not easy. But until you figure it out, until you create that culture of entrepreneurship in your business, you're never going to be able to grow the business of your dreams. You're going to be stuck in your business. You'll never get to principle 5, 6, and 7 in the book. You're going to stop at principle 4. As a matter of fact, may go backwards the other way, and you end up really in the depths of the messy middle trying to grow your business, where it's 2 steps forward, 3 steps back, 1 step forward, 2 steps back, and you can't ever get through.
So a couple of things I'm hearing is, one, you got to kind of be prepared, you got to be prepared to develop the appropriate skills for entrepreneurship within your organization. And there's value in understanding how to scout, recruit, and hire folks with that skill set, or at least some indicators or attributes that can be built upon once they walk through the door. How'd I do on that?
Yeah, pretty good. I mean, I hosted a session this week with one of the largest franchising companies in the US, and we had their franchising. We're talking about how do you create an environment that fosters this? Because that cleaning company example you gave me, they fostered this culture of entrepreneurship that once you foster it, and the snowball just keeps going and going. That sports company I mentioned to you before that we lost, right? That we had never run an ad to hire somebody ever. Like we were getting people coming to want to work for our business because of the word of mouth of people already in the business going, this is the best company ever. We got to work here, right? That's the cult. And once you get that, it starts going and starts rolling. And it takes hard work to do that. But think about the whole environment, how your incentive programs are built, how you're patting people on the back and thanking them for what you do. Do you have a company picnic? Or just like think about the whole environment where people want to be. But then are you providing proper rewards? Are you giving people an opportunity to run a P&L of your divisions? Hey, I trust you. Go see how you do it. Are you training them on the financials of the business and showing them, hey, here, transparency. Like, here's how we do on a job. Here's how we make our gross margin. Here's how this works. Now go take this job and show me what you can do. Are you allowing people to fail and say, that's okay, no problem. That you learned. Okay, let's take the next one. Are you creating that environment where you're training entrepreneurs within your business? Or are you trying to train your employees to generate more for you? It's an environment question.
Yeah. It can be the system. It's a system that can be designed, right? I kind of default to the thinking of whatever I'm experiencing right now. And then especially when I don't like it, my system is perfectly designed to produce it. It's not an accident. And so when I think of things in those terms, I don't like the results or the outcomes that I'm experiencing. I need to evaluate my system, because I can tweak the system much faster, or rather in a more sustainable way, than I can go and change the world and make everybody a better employee.
I couldn't agree with you more on that.
Now, you said something that I 100% agree with. I have a way of going about it, but I'd like to get some insight on your thoughts, because you're coaching people in helping companies, entrepreneurs grow their businesses in terms of celebrating problems and making it okay to experiment. And I'm using experiment instead of fail, because that's how it works in my brain. What do you suggest people, or what are some of the most common roadblocks that you see that are easy if people just shifted their thinking a little bit?
I love the word fail now.
Yeah.
And I wish I could give her appropriate credit, but we had a guest on our podcast. Her name was Erin. Trying to remember the last name now, but I'll have to look it up and get it to you. She has a company called Fail Yeah.
Okay.
And here's the problem we have. And she articulated this to me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you're so right. You're so right. What happens is when somebody fails within a business, something doesn't go right. They take it and they try and shove it under the rug because they don't want to be exposed. They don't want anybody to find out. They're embarrassed. They don't want to get fired. Whatever the situation may be, we live in that culture. Think about a CEO reporting their finances, even a public company. When they report their finances, they're not like, yeah, here's where we really screwed up this month. They're actually shoving that under the rug and they're showing you all the beautiful graphs that actually go the right direction. They don't go with the ones that don't. And so we have this culture in small business where it's not okay to fail. And the businesses that create a culture, and what she was talking about in this fail yeah culture, she goes into companies and every month you got to bring in a storyboard of something you failed at.
Ooh, that's a requirement.
It's a requirement. And the largest failures get the most rewarded from the perspective of, we tried to do this and massively, and they make fun of each other here, or themselves, I should say. We did this, look, oh my gosh, like, here's what happened. It didn't work. And they actually recognize within the organization the vulnerability and the power of being open and transparent, because they can articulate how this didn't work. Somebody else learns from it. They make sure they don't repeat it. All these other things start happening. And there's less of a culture of hiding things. It's more of a culture of transparency and being okay and accepting the fact that no one's perfect and no one's ever going to do it all the time, and recognizing that. So I think it's a big thing in small business is to allow people to fail. And especially if you're trying to build a culture of entrepreneurship, give someone a responsibility to go do something and let them know, hey, I want you to succeed doing this, but this is a learning opportunity for you. And when they come back, go, yeah, it didn't really work and we lost a little bit of money on this job or whatever happened, go through it with them, train them, teach them, pat them on the back. Say, okay, you ready to take one again? Let's go. You could do it this time, and walk them through it again.
100%. I think the way I look at those failure points, like my own personal failures, I'm having fun and I can learn. And I got a great network of my advisory council. They really help me polish up and tune up on the regular. And like when I'm supporting teams and helping people, the way I look at failures, the failure point is the venue for growth and coaching.
Big time.
Right. And so hiding it or polishing that turd and sprinkling glitter on it doesn't help anybody, doesn't help you, because I think things are fine. It doesn't help me because I'm going to go tell my boss and I'm going to do my polishing, right? Things are fine. And by the time you can't hide it, when we run out of runway to polish and glitter up turds, it's too late to do anything about it. And so surfacing problems early is a good thing because one, we can accelerate the learning. We can close that feedback loop. Two, you signal and get the resources you need to be successful so that it doesn't have a dramatic impact on the business and the health and wellness of the individual. Because I know every time I polish something up, I was not feeling good about it, but I didn't want to get yelled at, right? Yeah. I didn't want to have that negative consequence, if you will. And so I've heard two sayings that I repeat often around this failure idea. And it's bad news early is good news. And the other one I heard is bad news does not get better with age.
True that.
And so if we, as leaders building a business or hell, raising kids, the way we respond and react to bad news is going to condition people to behave in an entrepreneurial way or not. What do you think about that?
No, I talk about kids or even your team, right? Your team does something wrong or it doesn't work or we lose a client and the entrepreneur comes storming out of their office and berates the person in front of everybody else. What kind of culture are you creating, right? With your kids, that was a perfect example. I love the way you bring that to kids. Your kid gets in an accident with your car or does something and they bring it to you. They come to you, hey, they're probably crying. The last thing you should be doing is beating them up over it. They came to you. They had the courage to bring. Now, certainly you're going to be upset. There's going to be different things, but how you react to things that go on in your business or in your life is 50% of the battle in my mind, right? And it's all mindset regulation. It's all like mindset's a big thing. It's a big thing in athletes. It's a big thing in entrepreneurs. A big thing in business leaders and in parents. Like the ability to regulate your mood and understand when and how, having that emotional intelligence to know when and how to best use your emotions and your energy to develop future long-term benefit, not just the instant situation, is a very hard skill to attain.
Oh, I know. I've ordered it on Amazon and it seems to be on back order. It hasn't arrived yet. I'm still waiting for it. So I have a bad habit of being ultra selfish with awesome people's time. So I'm trying to be more responsible. But who is the ideal candidate to read the $100 million journey?
I'd say every entrepreneur, absolutely. I do define, Jesse, in the book that specifically, if you're north of $5 million in revenues, have been in business more than 10 years, and you're on this entrepreneurial journey trying to grow your business to the next level, you must read the book. If you're an entrepreneur in business, you should read the book. And if you're an entrepreneur an entrepreneur who's saying, I want to start a business someday, the roadmap is here, right? You may not connect with everything right off the bat because there's some sophisticated financial elements to the book. And as you're growing your company that are important to understand and master. But the book, I'd say, is for all entrepreneurs, but it depends as you grow and have been an entrepreneur longer, you start resonating with more of the core concepts.
Okay, so here's what I heard. I need the damn book right now. I'm nowhere near $1 million, but it's going to help me. And when I get there, because I'm going to get there to all that other stuff, because it provides me the resources and venues to serve more people. So that's the whole point. So I need the book. And if you have an entrepreneurial spirit, get the book. I'm assuming it's on Amazon and you got a website for people to find it at?
Yeah, exactly. You can find it on Amazon. It's also at 100mjourney.com. So 100M as in million, journey.com. All the information's on there as well as a free workbook that people can go download It kind of has a questionnaire in there and some financial instruments to help you with your business.
Beautiful, beautiful. All right. So get the book, guys, because I'm going to get it. I should have gotten it before we had this call, but I'm a slacker. So here's the fun question. And I'm excited because you mentioned you have a 30-year plan and it's probably extended since then. You've accumulated a wealth of knowledge and experience, not just in business, but in life as a human being. And so what is the promise you are intended to be?
The promise that I'm intended to be to others or to me?
Let's start with others.
Okay. So not dissimilar to yours, but very closely. I want to be the guide to help people achieve their dreams without falling off the cliff like I did. And it's more geared towards entrepreneurs in that vein, but I do a lot of work with athletes, do a lot of work with parents and other areas that aren't entrepreneurs. But yeah, helping people achieve their dreams the right way with patient ambition is really my life's purpose.
Nice. I love it. And how about to you?
Yeah, my life plan is to maximize all of life's offerings. And then in all these different categories, right? How am I going to do that? Whether it be in my career, as I just mentioned, that's kind of one big thing for me with my health, with my wealth, with my relationships, my spirituality, with my family, and all these different areas. How am I going to maximize life's offerings? Because we're here for a short time, although it's being elongated a little bit, right? There's going to be maybe some additional life and health span with all these technologies coming out, but we got to maximize it. We got to maximize every day, every week, every month, and get the most of this thing called life.
Oh, man. Amazing. I knew it was going to be deep, so I appreciate you for that. Anybody want to shout out?
If I have to shout anybody out, Jesse, I'm going to shout out Rich Hoffman, right? My co-host with Entrepreneurs United podcast, because you had a chance to meet with him. And he's just been a 25-year long business relationship, friendship that's been there along my entire journey. And I'm so grateful to host the Entrepreneurs United podcast with him every single week. I'd encourage people to check that out as well for entrepreneurs. They want to take a look at that. Definitely give him a shout out.
Dang, you stuck around all the way to the end. And I hope the reason you stuck it like all the way through was because you were getting a lot of value out of the conversation. I always get at least one, most of the time, a handful of good nuggets, good ideas, good perspectives that I can take and apply into my life going forward. That's the whole point. I want to share that with you guys and also highlight the amazing people that they are. And I want to end this by saying, if you feel like you've been living out a script that was written for somebody else, and you feel like you're in the wrong skin, I know that life. And all I did was numb myself to make it through to another day, which if you're there, you know how hopeless that feels. I want to recommend that you check out Becoming the Promise You Are Intended to Be. The stories in this book will help you know that you're not alone. They're my personal stories, like the real stuff that I went through, and I'm sharing them because it helps keep me sober. It helps me contribute my gifts and my talents in service to others. It helps me turn my failures, my shame, my embarrassment into something useful and positive. So check it out. Be kind to yourself, be cool, and we'll talk at you next time. Peace.